Hi music lovers, and welcome to the Music Project, your new space to explore the world through a musical perspective. In today's first music book review, we'll discuss the essay Mozart Was a Woman. This book, with a rather intriguing and provocative name, was written by the French journalist and author Aliette de Laleu and published in 2022. It takes us through a journey from ancient Greece to modern times and explores the lives of many talented and forgotten female composers, singers, and musicians. Even if the book hasn't been translated into English yet, this video aims to give you an overview of what it's about. So we picked 5 women, 5 stories that uncover how music has always been women's business as much as it is men's. First, let's go back to ancient Greece and talk about Sappho. She was a poet and musician, born on the island of Lesbos from an aristocratic family around 600 years before Christ, at a time when poetry and music were deeply intertwined and praised. Sappho often performed her poems with a musical instrument like the lyre, and she taught her music and poems to her students. In her poems, she would often speak in the first person, which made the message even more powerful and allowed her students to take ownership of what she wrote. Unfortunately, not a lot of her work made it to us. However, one poem survived, Ode to Aphrodite. At that time, poems were often dedicated to a god or goddess, and when it comes to Sappho, her work and the school she founded were dedicated to a goddess, Aphrodite. Sappho was a free woman in her work and in who she chose to love. Several centuries after Sappho's passing, Ode to Aphrodite was badly perceived, and history transformed her into a depraved woman. But during ancient Greece, she was truly respected in society for her talent. Now, let's travel from Greece to Italy to meet Francesca Caccini. Francesca was a composer born in Italy in the 1500s at a blooming period of time for the arts. She grew up in an artistic environment during a transitional time between the Renaissance and the Baroque period. Her father was a composer and musician, and he taught her music at an early age, which led her to become a composer herself, as well as a singer and a lute player. Francesca was talented and influential, but what makes her part of history is that she's considered to be the first woman who composed an opera. Indeed, the liberation of Ruggiero from the island of Ancina was performed for the first time in 1625. She was probably inspired by the first opera to ever exist, L'Orfeo, composed in 1607 by Monteverdi, and she worked on her own version of this new form of expression. During her career, Francesca was under the employment and protection of Christine de Lorraine, who was part of the famous art-loving family, the Médicis, and she was able to compose, teach, and play music freely. When thinking about classical music, what's the first name that comes to your mind? Wait, while you think about it, make sure to subscribe to the Music Project channel to see what's coming next. Thank you, and now back to the video. I bet many of you thought of Mozart, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, but as you might have guessed from the book's title, Wolfgang Amadeus wasn't the only one in his family with a talent for music. He had a sister as brilliant as he was, and her name was Maria Anna. She started learning music at the age of 8 with her father. She wanted to play violin, but he refused, as women were only allowed to play clavecin or pianoforte at that time. Maria Anna was a real phenomenon. Her talent was known all around Europe. She was a prodigy, able to play complex concertos and sonatas at only 11 years old. Maria Anna and Amadeus both went on a European tour organized by their father when they were only 12 and 7 years old. They played in more than 40 cities. Amadeus composed music at a very early age, but what's often forgotten in history books is that his older sister helped him, and they worked together on his first symphony, composed in London during that European tour. Unlike her brother, Maria Anna was not allowed to compose officially, and her father refused to let her become a professional musician because she was a woman. She stopped her career at around 16 years old with the project to get married, but ended up getting married at age 33 with a man she did not love. However, even after getting married and living in a different city, she kept a strong connection to her brother, and she became his advisor, making sure to always give her opinion on his work. The story you're about to hear isn't actually about one woman, but a group of women. the students of the Paris Music Conservatory. When it opened in 1795, the Music Conservatory was open to having male and female students. However, there were many differences in the way they were treated. Men and women had different entrances to make sure to avoid contact as much as possible between genders. And women were not allowed to study composition and were forbidden to play several instruments that were considered too provocative for them. Why is it important to talk about this group of women? Because the 19th century is known to be a period of regression for women's rights in France. But these women, by learning music at a professional level, went against what was expected of them at that time. Being discreet, taking care of children, staying home, and learning just enough to seduce a potential husband, but not to be independent. Page 211. The author wrote the following sentence. Passing through the United States allows us to observe the rise of the classical music scene during the 19th century, and to highlight the paradox of a country plagued by violent racial segregation, where can be found the majority of black singers who changed the lyrical scene. On that note, let's cross the Atlantic so you can be introduced to Elizabeth Greenfield. Elizabeth was a singer born into slavery around 1810 in Mississippi. Her enslaver, Mrs. Greenfield, got divorced and moved to Philadelphia in 1820, where she freed her slaves, including Elizabeth. In Philadelphia, Elizabeth secretly learned music with one of her neighbors, and when Mrs. Greenfield heard Elizabeth sing, she was so blown away by her talent that she decided to support her by paying for her music lessons and organizing private concerts at her house. Elizabeth was very talented and sang music written by Donizetti, Bellini, Handel. She was even invited by Queen Victoria to give a concert at Buckingham Palace, a sign that her talent was recognized beyond America's borders. However, despite her success and talent, she was still a black singer in America. In 1853, she performed in front of a white-only audience during her concert at the Metropolitan Hall of New York because, I quote, "No colored person can be admitted, as there has been no part of the house appropriated for them." This event was a defining moment in her support to the African American cause, as she started giving concerts to black-only orphanages and retiring homes, and she created the Black Swan Opera Troupe in order to help black artists to perform opera. Even if Elizabeth Greenfield's story is very uncommon, it shows us that even in the darkest of times, women of all color and background have shaped the music scene all around the world. To conclude this video, we want to share 3 takeaways from this book. Number 1. Women have been part of music composition and music performance for the longest time, but the way history has been written pushes us to remember Chopin, Vivaldi and Bach rather than Caccini, Greenfield and Sappho, which proves how important it is to look at both sides of one story. Number 2. Progress isn't a straight line. There have been setbacks and advances, times when women were allowed or forbidden to do something specific in the music world over the centuries. But if we keep pushing forward, progress will happen. Number 3. Representations are important. The stories we talked about in today's video need to be written and heard in order to stay alive and to keep on inspiring new generations of musicians, composers, and singers, no matter their gender. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, don't forget to send it to a friend, and if you want to see more of what's coming in the music project, make sure to subscribe